Now let us understand about the carbon trading. What is carbon trading? So consider two companies, company A and company B. Now the company A has cap on its emissions and it has emitted more than its cap. So either they have to pay a penalty if they have the mandatory requirement to keep the cap, or if they have themselves defined a cap, then it is a voluntary case. In that case also, this company may like to reduce their emissions by somebody else's emission purchase. So if there is a company B who have reduced their emissions below a certain limit through some project implementation. So what happens is company B has available carbon credits and they can sell these carbon credits to company A to fulfill its either compliance requirement or the obligation requirement. So if company A is buying the carbon credits from company B, that is known as carbon trading process. It's an allowance based mechanism. So what happens is, because you are buying the carbon credit from company B and you are making some payment to them, actually it is incentivizing the company B to do more and more green initiatives. So what happens is, it's giving incentive to those activities which are adding some clean activities or projects in their operations. And how it happens is, company A and company B both have to register themselves on a platform which is known as carbon trading platform. There are many platforms, we will discuss that later. So on that platform, company B registered themselves that they have reduced the carbon emission by this much value, and they get it a third party verification done and get issuance on the registry, and the buyer also goes to the registry and the company B is able to sell the carbon credit to company A, which is known as carbon trading process. Carbon is not the carbon as material, it has an inherent meaning of carbon dioxide. And it is not only carbon dioxide, actually it is equivalence of carbon dioxide. All emissions are having different categories, whether it is CO2 emissions or SO2 emissions or NO2 emissions or NH3. There are various types of GHG gases, but they are given in equivalency of carbon dioxide, and that is what we named it as carbon trading. In this course, we are going to discuss about the international carbon trading platforms. So there are various trading platforms. The most of the carbon credits internationally are traded on the VCS platform, because currently countries do not have a mandatory criteria. So international trading happens on voluntary carbon platform, which is under the VERA registry, VERRA. So VERA registry is handling the VCS program. We will discuss about the VCS program. There is another program which happens within the European Union, that is known as EU ETS program, European Union Emission Trading System. So we will discuss about this. And in the same format, we have the emission trading happening in America, which is known as California Trading Program. There is a carbon trading process happens in China. So we will discuss couple of international carbon trading programs and standards, and finally we will also discuss about how this is happening or evolving in India. We will discuss how the trading process happens. Each step of carbon trading process we are going to discuss in this session, and how the market decides the pricing of carbon credits. We will see what have been the historic trends in the carbon market price, and finally we will also see that once you are a compliance buyer or a voluntary buyer, you have to retire your carbon credits to meet your desired carbon neutrality goal. So what is the retirement process? So thank you very much. Let us start this session. It is going to be a wonderful session to understand step-by-step method of the carbon trading process. Now, irrespective of the standards, the carbon credit price is affected by a couple of factors. The first factor is that what is the type of project for which carbon credits are created. It can be a renewable project, it can be an energy efficiency project, it can be a waste to energy project, or it can be some social project wherein you are doing impact on masses. For example, cook stove project or a LED program initiated by Government of India. So all these are the different type of projects which are there, and the pricing depends what type of project you are doing. The second factor which is affecting the price of carbon credit is vintage. If you have very old carbon credits, then the price will be less. As long as your vintage is recent, you will get better value of your carbon credit. So second factor is the vintage, and the third factor is the volume. How much is the quantum of carbon credit you may want to sell? That is also affecting the prices of the carbon credit in the market. So three factors: what technology you are using, what is the vintage, and how much is the volume. These are the three main factors. There are a couple of some other factors, whether it is registered at gold standard or at some VCS standard or a CDM standard, and on those standards also the pricing of carbon credit also vary. The gold standard is considered as a very high level of assurance in terms of emission reductions and having some social or UN sustainable development goals associated in the assessment of the carbon credit. So those type of carbon credits find bit higher values. Sometimes regional values, such as some project which is happening in Africa, and the impact of the purchase of carbon credit is affecting lives in Africa and helping some poor nations. Those type of program which is affecting masses is also valued on a higher scales. So three main factors and couple of other factors are the factors which are affecting the pricing of carbon credits. Okay, now we will discuss about the carbon trading process. So the first part is it starts from the project. So you should have a real project which is implemented and it is able to reduce certain CO2 emissions or equivalent carbon emissions. So identifying a project is very important factor. The second aspect is establishment of the baseline. For example, if you are doing a solar or a wind project, so what is the baseline? The baseline is that it is going to replace the conventional coal or hydro or a equivalent of them. The grid power is being replaced by some clean power. So grid emission factor becomes the baseline emission factor. In case of LED bulb program, the baseline is when we are implementing the LED bulb, it is reducing or replacing a normal incandescent lamp which is consuming higher efficiency. So in place of a 60 watt lamp, if you are replacing it by 9 watt or a 12 watt lamp, so you are defining the baseline. In case of a cook stove program, what you are doing is the baseline is that you would have burned the wood just like that, and it would have consumed so much of wood to cook food for one family. Now if you are using an improved cook stove, then it is using less wood and it is creating less pollution as compared to a baseline. So establishing a baseline is important to quantify your emission reductions. So you have to find out a baseline and how your project is able to reduce the carbon emissions. Once you have identified the baseline, you have to select a carbon credit standard. Whether you want to take this project at CDM, you want to take it as VCS, you want to take it at gold standard or to any of the regional registry. So which standard you want to take the program is the next process. You have selected the standard. The process takes to the next step, that you have to identify a third party whose role is to do the measurement and verification. They are known as DOE, Designated Operating Entity, or they are known as third party auditor. They have defined set of guidelines to evaluate your project report. Once they have checked your project, they will review documents, and if they will find it okay, all clarifications are done, they will approve this as a certified project, recommend this to the standard that yes, according to our assessment, this project meets the carbon emission reduction criteria. And once this project is certified at certain standard, let us say Vera registry or a Vera standard, then you get the verification done. So again, a third party will do the verification, that how many lamps you replaced, or how many cook stove you sold, or how much megawatt capacity of solar power has been installed by the company. And this verification will quantify the actual measurable quantified reduction of carbon dioxide, equivalent carbon dioxide emissions. And once this is certified, you have verified carbon credit which are issued by the registry, and then you are able to sell those carbon credits to any buyer. So you as a project developer is already registered at the registry, and the buyer also registered himself at the registry, and then the trading process happens. The buyer will put his requirement there, and the seller will do a bilateral negotiation, and at that negotiation they will sign one document which is known as ERPA, Emission Reduction Purchase Agreement. And once this is executed, it's a legal document, the project developer will give a request for issuance of the carbon credit to the buyer's name after getting paid for it, and the credits are online transferred in the account of the buyer. If the buyer is having the requirement to further sell it, if he is a trader, he will sell these carbon credit to any third party. If the buyer is having the end use requirement of these carbon credits to meet its requirement of voluntary or a mandatory obligation of doing the net zero goals, then they will retire these carbon credits. So they will submit the retirement request to the registry with a request that these many carbon credits are to be retired to meet this objective or this goal. The registry will issue a certificate of retirement that this company or this organization has organized this event, and for this event they have disclosed that they have 100,000 tons of CO2 emissions, and they want to make this event as carbon neutral, and for that they are retiring these many carbon credits. So that is known as the retirement process. So we understood how it starts right from the project development to the origination, establishing the baseline, then getting it verified, issued, and then trading, and finally the retirement. Friends, this whole process, the aim is quantified emission reduction should be given financial incentives, and in the whole process the project developer gets additional money. Now let us discuss how the pricing happens. If the volumes are more, if the demand is very high in the market for carbon credit, the price will go high. If the demand is low, the price will come down. So it's a demand and supply mechanism. What happened is in early 2009-10, the market demand for voluntary carbon credit under the VCS registry, if you can see my slide, you will find that the market demand gone as high as 140 million tons of carbon credit per year. So that many number of carbon credits were traded right in 2009 and 10, and the demand peaked as high as about 7 to 8 dollars per tons of carbon equivalent. 1 ton of carbon dioxide is treated as 1 carbon credit. The voluntary carbon market price is little less as compared to the compliance market, especially if you talk about the CDM. In 2008-9, in the same period when the VCS price was about $8 to $9, the CDM price was as high as $20 per carbon credit. The recent times, the prices have come down. During pandemic also the prices have come down because companies suffered a lot of losses and less production, and their emission levels were also low. So the requirement of carbon credit has come down in the recent period. Now it is picking up further. But let me tell you, currently the carbon credit prices are hanging around $2 to $3 per carbon credit. I'm using word carbon credit because it is irrespective of any standard. If you have the VCS carbon credit at $2.5 per CER, the gold standard is about $1 to $2 higher as compared to the voluntary standard, because that is treated at a higher standard. So typically in a project of 1 megawatt of solar, you generate about 1600 carbon credits every year, about 1500 to 1600 carbon credit. That means even if you consider about $2 per carbon credit, you have about $3,000 per year additional income. So $3,000 is roughly about some 20 lakh rupees revenue you get in a typical 1 megawatt solar project installation, if you are trying to sell those carbon credits in the voluntary market. So that is the level at which you get the price. And pricing is also dependent on the technology. In my slide, you will see that the waste, transportation, renewable energy, household devices, energy efficiency, or some other programs like chemical processes and all that, they have different types of carbon credits. Finally it is equivalent CO2 reduction, but the prices vary. If you look at this, then what you will find is the household devices, the price of carbon credit is treated at highest. The renewable carbon credit, because now renewables have become business as usual, so they feel like no, even without assistance of carbon credit money, this project would have happened, and that is the reason it is valued less. So the carbon credits of solar projects or wind projects is being sold at about 1.5 or $1 per CER. So that is the level on which the different types of technologies are also treated in the market. Finally, let me summarize these carbon credits that we have to make this market, and the treatment of your pricing is dependent on the volume, the technology, which region you are, and couple of other factors which are affecting the pricing. Okay friends, now finally India is emerging as a hub for green technologies, and there is a requirement of having the Indian carbon market. So how is the picture emerging for Indian carbon market? So what is happening is the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is developing the carbon exchange. So it is the administrator. BE is the administrator of this, and CERC is the market regulator. So if the buyer and seller, so who are the buyers on the exchange on the Indian carbon market? So Indian carbon market is not only the carbon credit market, but this registry is going to be of various type of green credits. Already in India we have PET scheme, wherein you can trade the ECerts, energy efficiency certificates. So that is also being traded through the IEX as a trading platform. Then REC are the another type of certificate which is known as renewable energy certificate, that is also being traded on the REC registry. All these things are trying to be brought on a single exchange, so that process is underway. So all these technologies will have fungibility also. So the buyers are discoms or the individuals, compliance buyers, like the ECert requirement, or an industry which is having the PET obligation, or the discom which is having the RPO obligation, they buy the RECs. So like that, there are multiple type of buyers. There can be a voluntary buyer also, wherein there is airlines which is claiming that they want to offer a zero emission air travel, and for that purpose they can buy the carbon credit from our exchange. So we are trying to work it out like that. So once the buyer puts a demand and seller agrees to sell his or her carbon credits to meet that demand, it is forwarded to the registry, and once the registry receives, it checks the requirement and verifies the documentation of trading, then it approves the transfer of those many carbon credits or green credits to the buyer's account. Okay, so that is what the emerging structure of the Indian market. Couple of agencies we discussed, whether it is CERC, which is the overall market regulator, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is going to be the the administrator of this, and there are many other agencies. So we will find that all this trading happens at a common platform. In the years to come, this is going to be a big business even in the Indian market. So I'm sure you may have learned the intricacies about the Indian as well as international carbon market. Let us have a recap of what we have learned. So friend, we discussed about what is the carbon trading as a process, how it happens, what are the different platforms on which the carbon trading happens, what are the steps in executing a carbon trading process, right from project development to verification, validation, and then issuance, and the the settlements, and finally the retirement. So all these processes we discussed, and finally we also discussed how the pricing in the market happens, and we also discussed about how the Indian carbon market is emerging. So thank you very much for this session.